This particular lesson applies the social norm theory to explain how to predict consumer purchase intentions and behavior. The social norm theory proposes that people tend to label each other based on similarities and non-similarities. People with similar characteristics are categorized as in-groups, and people with non-similar traits are classified as out-groups. And we rely on these categorizations to determine whether to join or not join a particular group. Once we identify with an in-group, we label those group members as us, and people with non-similar characteristics we label as them. Labeling people based on similar and non-similar characteristics will create an us versus them power dynamic. For example, imagine if you are standing in front of two separate groups. The social norm theory suggests that we identify with the group with the most characteristics similar to our personal traits. The social norm theory explains the in-group and out-group labeling that is responsible for those us versus them differences that we see in political affiliation groups, church denomination groups, sexual orientation and sexual identity groups, racial groups, rival sport teams, professional groups, and marital status groups, just to name a few. The us versus them power dynamic can be seen between groups with opposing group norms, which is also defined as group differences. Because we associate a person's attitudes and behaviors by their differences in in-group norms, the us versus them power struggles are primarily due to stereotypes, unfounded opinions, biases, and even misperceptions that justify our negative attitudes toward people with non-similar characteristics. Furthermore, research has shown that groups with an us versus them power dynamic will compare outcomes, and the group with the least favorable results will apply stereotypes, biases, or unfounded opinions to impose unjust and unwarranted blame, which intensifies the us versus them opposition. The social norm theory was studied to determine if an us versus them power dynamic exists in consumer purchasing. And marketing literature confirmed that consumers replicate the social norm theory process by also labeling products or services based on what is similar and non-similar to their personal characteristics. Therefore, companies advertise or alter their products by showcasing their similarities to the marketing demographic. For example, an American candy bar company decided to expand its products to Japan. However, the consumers in Japan identified the product as being non-similar to their characteristics based on the packaging and also the flavors of that candy bar. The social norm theory predicts that Japanese consumers would be less likely to purchase the candy bar over their local, more similar brands. A researcher applied the social norm theory and informed the company to revise the candy bar wrapper and introduce flavors similar to the people in that region of Japan. And as a result, the company recognized a significant increase in sales and is now a substantial competitor in the Japanese candy bar market. Here's another example. The social norm theory suggests that fast food chains with locations in multiple regions should market those products to reveal what is most similar to the consumer's characteristics in that particular area. Therefore, you may have noticed the same fast food chain advertise different commercials using a variety of actors and actresses, and also introduce different music and themes to increase consumer purchase intentions by creating an in-group similarity. However, marketing firms and consultants must account for social media. Why? Because social media can alter the social norm theory's influence on consumer purchase intentions and behaviors. Now you may be wondering how or why. Well, let's look back at the fast food chain scenario. Based on the social norm theory's us versus them power dynamic, It is more likely to view tweets, posts, or even reaction videos from an opposing group on that fast food chain's commercial. Therefore, social media has increased the consumer's likelihood to recognize modification in commercials that were used to attract consumers that may have identified with opposing group norms. Now, research has shown that social media increases the perception of brand dishonesty when consumers can view variation in messaging based on opposing group norms. Here is a non-consumer based scenario to better explain the effect of social media. Have you ever watched or viewed a politician who delivered a speech on issues similar to your group? Then you went to social media and viewed a tweet, post, comment, or a reaction video where you witnessed the same politician support non-similar issues to gain the votes from members of an opposing group. The us versus them power dynamic suggests that these modifications in messaging will influence the voters' perceptions of that politician and also impact the voting intentions. Why? Because the social norm theory predicts that in-group norms that oppose out-groups will influence how we act and think in various situations. In order to account for social media, companies should use specialized consumer surveys to align advertising with their mission and vision. A company's ability to remain consistent will improve brand loyalty by accounting for retweets, reposting, and reaction videos to that particular product or service. And if you want to know more or request consumer surveys, please send me a message using the contact information in the description box or the link below. The next video will apply the social identity theory on leadership decision making in business. This is Leroy Perionowski Fuller, and thank you for watching.